Welcome back to Open Line, talking about the remarkable events of the day. Mayor Barry resigned this morning. David Briley is now the new mayor of Nashville. We have a bunch of calls here. I'm joined by Chief Investigative Reporter Phil Williams, and we're streaming this live on our Facebook page. There's a robust back and forth on our Facebook page. I'm not going to read all of these comments, but suffice it to say, people on both sides are weighing in on our Facebook page, and it's interesting to see all of that. Let's go to Paul on line 7. Hello, Paul.
Yes, I appreciate you taking the call. First of all, I'd like to say I actually was on the call when this story first broke by Phil Williams, and personally think a lot of people in Davidson County owe a lot of respect to Phil Williams for the work that he's done in this case, and it's good to know that we've got somebody there that's actually got an eye on looking at the government issues that a lot of the working people don't have time to keep up with. So it's good to know that we've got somebody that's follows up on what he does and completes his stories. He does a great job. So Davidson County people should commend Phil Williams for the work that he's done, and I'm sure there's others that's been involved in it as well. But I think what came down to the situation is Megan Barry and the sidekick that they have there had more to develop, and that's why she took the avenue she took today.
You think there was more to it?
Yes, sir, I do, and they didn't want that exposed, and I think that was a big issue for them to go ahead and bow out at this point in time. And I can't understand the reasoning for some of these callers that's calls in that's upholding somebody that's already committed and admitted to their faults. I wonder how they would feel if that would have been their husband involved with Megan Barry, if they had the same point of view.
All right, thank you, Paul, for your comment. So he says kudos to you, first of all. You were on the show right after your interview.
Exactly.
And I was fascinated how it came about. You didn't do it. You didn't do the story the day you started looking into this. This was a build-up, and I guess walk us through as best you can, how this all came about.
Yeah, but still, by our standards, this was a pretty quick response because I submitted a public records request, actually a couple of public records requests to the mayor's office and to the Metro Nashville Police Department, looking for overtime records for Sergeant Rob Forrest, looking for travel records, looking for emails and text messages between the two of them, and it was 5 days later that the mayor sat down with us and made the admission. So by our normal standards, that was a really fast response.
Now, normally, yeah, it takes longer to get the information.
Right.
But clearly, he had just resigned, right? When you made that request, did he resign?
He had just submitted his papers for retirement.
He had just retired. And so you made those requests, those public records requests, and then 5 days later sat down.
Right.
And she admitted to it.
And here was the problem for her, because they gave us the records just a couple of hours before the interview. So we had questions, general questions for that interview, but no one had had a chance to dive into those records. And so after the interview and after the initial story broke, then we started that process of investigating, comparing her calendars to his overtime. And so more came out, beyond that initial interview.
Part of me wonders how much she had done of that. I think she thought if she's honest and just says, yeah, I did it, I messed up, let's move on, that would happen. And I think she thought maybe it was, it was a wrong thing to do, but there was nothing really illegal here. And I just wonder how much she had looked over that information she gave you, and if they knew what was coming, if they were fully prepared for it.
Yeah, I really don't think that they did kind of know what might come out. But again, I want to go back to this. I think she felt she had a really good argument to make, because the police chief was saying she needed a police officer with her when she was out on the town, when she was traveling. And so she really thought that, even though the affair was wrong, that was a use of taxpayer money that ultimately would not be questioned.
Caroline Moss here on Facebook says the records should be public. These records are not going to be public, as you said off the top. That's part of the deal here.
But by statute, TBI investigative records are confidential. And so that is part of the equation here, potentially, that she knew that if she ended this investigation today, whatever else investigators have uncovered or might uncovered would never see the light of day.
Let's go to Michael. Hello, Michael. Michael, are you there? Okay, hold on, Michael. We'll come back to you. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, what's on your mind?
Well, I was going to say something else, make a Giuliani joke, but I'm not going to say it. I want to address two things. I'm going to address the gentleman that said, how would you feel if this was your husband? Well, his behind would be out on the street corner. When you're married to your husband, this Sergeant Force was married to his wife, Mayor Barry wasn't married in that marriage relationship. She has her own marriage. So if your husband cheats on you, deal with your husband. Don't go blaming it on the other woman, which I guess I'm going to make this remark, and I never thought I would stoop so low as to saying something like this. I can only think of a movie right now with everything that's going on. I really think what is behind sealed files now is probably more personal in nature, and it just makes me think of a movie. If you've ever seen in the movie Hannibal, close to the closing scene where the lady walks downstairs, Clarice, and she sees Hannibal there feasting on the brain of the guy from the Department of Justice.
Okay.
What the guy in the Department of Justice says to her at that little dinner party, to me, is what probably Marsha Blackburn, Diane Black, and the other lady running for governor should pay attention to, because I really think that maybe that's the whole gist of all of this. And on that, I'll hang up, guys. Bye.
Lucy, that reference escapes me. I don't know what he said, and now we're all going to have to go look up what in the world did they say. Okay, let's go to Corey. Hello, Corey.
Yes, I was curious about the timing of events, and I was wanting to know if Phil thought it was a mistake for her to get back with him within 5 days and try to get out in front of the story. And I was also wanting to ask him if he thought there was any possible path forward in trying to fight this, because elected officials have survived scandals before.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, and here was an interesting point as we were doing our work, because I had a really good source, and actually a couple of sources, who told me that there had been an affair, but I had no proof. And so that had to have been part of their consideration of, is there merit in sitting down and confessing? Because, who knows how this would have played out had she not confessed.
What if, and you told me this the first night you were on, you said we couldn't have put this story on air tonight if she had denied it.
Correct.
What if she had said, no affair? It's fake news, no affair, absolutely not, deny, 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 deny. Now, you had all these documents and you would have started pouring through them, but what if she had done that?
It certainly would not have played out the way it has. Would we have stopped digging? No. But it certainly would not have played out as quickly as it has.
Let's go to Larry. Hello, Larry.
Uh-huh.
Go right ahead.
All right. I got a question.
All right.
I want to know how the mayor and the officer got to plead guilty in small court without going through the normal process to carrying it to the high court. In other words, they got convicted of a felony. They pled guilty to a felony. You can't plead guilty to a felony in little court. You have to wait and let it be bound over to the big court before you can plead guilty. So how did they get to just skip through the process?
Well, and I think that's a misunderstanding of the process, because she entered her plea in criminal court, which is the highest level of criminal court that we have in this county. This was a plea bargain. This was a deal with the DA. this was not a pleading guilty to an indictment. It was pleading guilty to an information, which is essentially a charge from the DA. So as far as which court it played out in, this was the court it should have played out in.
Yeah, she very publicly had to walk into court. She very publicly had to get her mugshot taken, as did Sergeant Forrest. It was all carried live on TV. When did this begin? When did you know today that this was going to be the day?
I think a little before 8 o'clock was when I first started, picking up from my sources that this was all happening today.
And when do you think she made the decision?
I think the decision was made yesterday. And in fact, one of my best sources on this story had told me yesterday morning that it would either happen yesterday afternoon or this morning.
Okay. Let's go to Judy. Hello, Judy. Are you there, Judy?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Go right ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, I have a couple of things. Number one, she was pleaded guilty, but with diversion, which means that she will not serve any time, and after 3 years, it will be expunged. Is that what everybody is allowed to do, or is this just because of who she is? Another question is, because he resigned before all of this happened, he will get his pension. Now, I've been listening, and I know that it could be, the amounts could be different, but had this been, if he had not retired before all of this hit, would he have been, quote, put on the bubble like a lot of police officers and just sat there indefinitely? And number three is a statement that with all of this Me Too movement across the nation, me being a female, I feel a slap in the face that she would act this way in the mayor's office for our city.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's a lot there. The Me Too movement, she addressed on that first night. She said this is a very different situation, but there are a lot of people who draw that parallel.
Yeah. Now, as to her question about whether she's receiving special treatment, again, that's in the eye of the beholder. The district attorney in the state of Tennessee has an enormous amount of discretion. One can look back at the history of other investigations that I've had. We expose former county clerk John Areola. He was pocketing money for performing weddings ceremonies on city time, essentially telling people his office charged a fee and then taking that money and pocketing it. Former DA Tory Johnson basically cut a deal with him that said, if you resign, you will not be charged. John Areola did not have to go into court and plead guilty to anything.
That's why it's in the eye of the beholder. Yeah, we're getting calls from people who say this was harsh. There's some who might say it's unprecedented. There are a lot of times that when you're an elected official, if you resign your office, they'll drop the charge. And the district attorney here did not let that happen.
That's correct. And that's within his discretion.
And that was part of what happened with this plea agreement. It's written in there. She must resign.
Exactly.
So that was part of this. Okay, we're going to take a break. You probably shouldn't call in because we have a ton of calls. We'll get to your calls after this break. We're also reading some of your comments on Facebook. Take a break. Be back right after this.